Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you guys are doing well, in the best of health, best of states. As you guys watch this new episode from Pursuit for Meaning. This new episode, for this new part, I would like to introduce to you guys a book which I read in my rediscovering of Islam. Why did I mention rediscovering is because in my youth years, I wouldn't say I had like a very holistic or perspective from what Deen of Islam is. I went to Catholic school I was in a Catholic school for 11 years. My primary school years for 6 years, and then in my secondary school years, which is about 5 years. And in the schooling system, how schooling system works is that majority of your time is outside of the home. If you divide your hours of how much hours you spend in school and how many hours you spend at home, the time that you spend in school is significantly higher. And so this is why schools are one of the bedrock places to actually create perspectives, create ideas, create definitions for the people who attend the school. So I was in a Catholic school. We had some. I had a lot of Catholic exposure. Put it like that. I remember all the songs. I remember the prayers. And I have met and sat with the brothers of the school. But it was a very interesting time for me because that was where I really experienced people of different spend a lot of time with people of different beliefs. But of course, in that school, we had also Muslims there as well. But because of my exposure or the time I spent with the people around me, the understanding I've had of the Deen was very limited. And so that's why I would call it a rediscovering. And in rediscovering Islam, one of the first books I was introduced to, a book by a brilliant mind of his time. His name is Maulana Fadhur Rahman Ansari. And very interestingly, he actually visited Singapore. His teacher founded a mosque in Singapore. He founded Masjid Alim Siddiq in one of, I forgot what's this, I think, for what street is it called, but it's in Teluk Kurau, around there, Lorong K. And then he also was part of Darul Arkam in Singapore, a Muslim convert association. And they were very interesting figures, very influential in the time, and they have actually spread a lot of good works. And they have numerous students still around. Most notably for me is a very, very, very interesting scholar called Maulana Imran Hussein. But this was just to share with you a little bit more about the book that we will share. It's called The Quranic Foundations of Muslim Society. And this book, he attempts to share, like the title suggests, to discuss, and they try to make sense of what he's trying to say, what was his influences, and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go into that part. But I just want to share with you something interesting that I took from him. Because when you read a book, you are almost reading the words of the person. So a book comes alive, when you read it like this. So I just want to share with you an excerpt, a few pages of this book, which I think is very important. And basically, the content of what I'll be sharing with you is the problems of human life. And there he will discuss and share what are the immediate problems we face, the things that we experience in our day-to-day lives, and then the existential questions that we face, which I was discussing earlier. And this helped me a lot to understand the flow, to look at where I am in this world, and to see where am I going. So without further ado, let's go straight to it. Chapter 1, Problems. Number 1, the problems of human life. Life means the activity, and all activity brings with it certain problems. Those problems have been solved successfully in order to make human life a success. If we analyze the human problems, we find that they fall under two categories. Number 1, immediate problems, and number 2, ultimate problems. The immediate problems are the practical day-to-day problems, such as those we refer to immediate personal needs of the individual, and such problems as the administration of the state, the production, consumption, and distribution of wealth, and the relations between the different nations of the world. There is no human being living on earth who has not faced these problems one way or another during his life. The manner in which they are faced, and the efficiency and the practical common sense which is shown in connection with their solution, forms the measure of human success. This will be, like how we manage our businesses. All of this is like common sense, things which we have to handle day to day and stuff like that, right? As regards the ultimate problems, every human being who takes life seriously finds himself face to face with them as soon as he attains the age of maturity and feels the strain, the burdens, and the intricacies of life. Just a note here. For me, very interestingly, I'm not sure how about you guys, but for me, one of the moments where I started to wonder, what is this whole world about, was when I had sea monkeys. The sea monkeys, I'm not sure people of my age you remember, but the sea monkeys were basically like shrimps, like this shrimps that they packed in like packets, and you put them into like a container. You have to clean the water, make sure it's prepared just for the sea monkeys, and then you let the sea monkeys grow. So I had my pet sea monkeys, and when I observed them, it was very interesting. Is I felt I created life. I felt that I created life and put it into this jar, prepared it, and then put some powder in it, and poof, um, life came out. And I started to wonder and really, really think about, like, am I just like another sea monkey? you know, what's controlling my life? What has prepared my existence? You know, just a side note. All right, we carry on. The first question which arises in this connection is, what am I? Every human being is closer to himself than anyone else. Hence, the first problem which should arise in his mind in connection with the ultimate problems should naturally be about his own self. The question, what am I, is a question about the nature of human beings. But this simple question opens a whole field of questions which shoot off in a continuous chain whose links are forged with an unbreakable bond of necessity. Consideration of this first question, therefore, leads to the next one. Namely, from where have the human beings come? Then a third question arises. What is the nature of human life? And then a fourth question. What is the purpose and end of human life? All the above mentioned questions are, to say, personal. But then, no human being lives in a vacuum. He lives in a world which is infinitely and immeasurably vaster than his physical infinitesimal personality. And this world influences his life and his actions at every step. His fortunes, nay, his very life, is interlinked with and dependent upon the world around him. For instance, if the sun were to stop its function, the entire related physical environment would be shattered to pieces. Or if the heat of the sun rises above or falls below the average of to certain levels, the very existence of the human being on earth will become impossible. This being the case, the questions about one's own self leads to questions about the world. The first question in that connection is, what is the world? Which in other words means, what is the nature of this world? But the nature of a thing cannot be properly understood unless we have a clear idea about the origin of that thing and the purpose for which it functions. Therefore, the questions about what leads to the question about when, how, where from, and where to. In other words, the inquiry arises: when did the world come into being? From what source did this world acquire its life? What is the end towards which it's moving? And what is its final goal or destiny? I think this is something very interesting. But let's carry on. Let's see what he says. Among the questions about the world, the questions how did the world come into being brings forth a number of further questions. Namely, if this world came into being by itself, how is that conceivable, i.e., on what ground? If this world was brought into being by some other force, what is that force? Is it an impersonal force like electricity? Or is it a person? If it's believed to be an impersonal force, that would mean that it is a blind force like all impersonal forces. And if it's a blind force, how could intelligence, foresight, plan, purpose, and law come out of it? If it's a person, what is the nature and constitution of that person? Is he a person like us, physical, faltering, and subject to the processes of decay and death? Or is he eternal? If not physical, what else is he? Is he finite or infinite? Is he one in number, or two, or three, or more? I just wanna talk about the top part of what he wrote. What we're looking at in the world. There's a lot of people out here today who believe that this world came into existence by chance. They believe that this entire world was brought out by randomness. That this world of intricate, subtle, and amazing design was brought in by chance. What they're saying is also this: if you take a paintbrush, you take a canvas, and you take a set of paint, and you put it into a box, and you shake it long enough, a painting of the Mona Lisa will be presented to you. Or they say, if you take a few bricks, a number of bricks of the pyramid, and you put it together and you leave it there and you shake it or something like that, there will be a moment of time where it will form the pyramid. This ideas is really, really ridiculous if you ask me. You see, how can something so intricate come out of nothing? You see, the idea of chance, the idea of random, there's actually no such thing as randomness, no such thing as chance. Chance is our incapacity or our disability to measure the variables that we have. Example, like a roulette table or a dice. When we throw that dice onto the roulette table, or someone throws the dice onto the roulette table, we feel it's a game of chance. But there was no chance. Everything was precise. The angle by which you throw the dice, the speed of how the roulette table turns, how fast do you throw the dice, where it hit in the roulette table, all of this is determined precisely. But because we could not measure it, but because we could not guess, we did not figure out the algorithms per se of how this all formed up. This is why we call it chance. Really, the reason why they say randomness, why they say this, and why they say chance, and all this kind of stuff, is because of the atheist incapacity and stupidity, actually, to understand there's more than meets the eye. We carry on. The above mentioned questions concerning man, the world, and God are the ultimate or fundamental problems. The questions are so vital that every thinking human being is bound to face them at one time or another during his life. And they have such a close bearing on the immediate questions of life that anyone who has any knowledge of a human problems will admit that they cannot be shriek. I think it's good that we stop there for now. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this paragraph that we have read? What do you think about what Maulana Fatima Ansari has shared? And then what is your take on the different perspectives on how what human life is, and whether and share you may be able to share with me as well. How did you experience your first moment of asking yourself, why am I here? What am I doing? For me, it was the sea monkeys. What was your sea monkey? Till the next one. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.